Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our NEXTschool High School Reinvented session. I'm Lynn Butler-Kisber. I'm a professor in education at the McGill University, and I'll be your moderator today. And before we start, I'm going to ask our panel to introduce themselves, and I'll start with Noel Burke.
Hi, my name is Noel Burke, and I'm the, founder and lead designer for the project over the last 7 years, and we're here today with a pilot school.
I'm Shelley McDonagh. I've been teaching for 22 years now, and I teach science for the last few years at Howard S. Billings High School.
Hello, my name is Spence. I am a student at High School Billings.
I'm Brian Woods. I'm currently the vice principal at Howard S. Billings. I've been there for 5 years. Before that, I was an elementary teacher for 20 years.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm part of the research team at McGill University, and I've been following the NEXTschool initiative for 7 years with Noel, and I've been working with these lovely people here. We're really happy to be here today to share what's been going on.
So we're going to start and have each panelist do about 10 minutes. I'll waive 1 minute when it's time to stop, and then we'll open it for questions. I would ask that you save your questions till the end so that everyone will get a chance to do their 10 minutes, and then hopefully we can have a conversation. Noel, turn it over to you.
Yeah, so it is a roundtable, but I'll stand up only because the slides advance are over here. One of the Russell's remarks in the opening keynote this morning was, and we'd rather be doing things that are better and more productive. Well, this is an example of what we think is something better and more productive. But also symptomatic of the English sector's appetite and success at innovation. It is very strong and a very vibrant educational community, perhaps in some ways because of its open access to a lot of research and a lot of leadership globally. Just to name drop for a moment, we are having a visit at the school next week by Michael Fullen, who wants to partner with the project. It's funny because I talk to young educators and they say, Michael who? I talk to educators in my generation and they say, wow. So why NEXTschool? Russell mentioned this morning the high success rate of students in Quebec. I'm the person that added the OECD stats, where we're among the top educational systems and performers on a global level. But in the Our Schools, which used to be the Tell Them From Me survey, students' sense of a level of engagement with school was very low. So look, 90% success rate in school, but only about a 30% tracking of students' sense of engagement. So that tells us, my interpretation is they know how to play the game, but maybe the game is not what they're interested in anymore. And so the objective of NEXTschool from the beginning has been student engagement. And we know from research that when students are engaged, they succeed, as opposed to the usual traditional approach, let's make them succeed more, whether or not they're engaged. That's not really what people are thinking. So there are 3 features and 3 needs that we've identified collectively. So I'm compressing 7 years into 10 minutes here. But what students are expecting from school is relevance. They want to learn and connect what they're learning in the classroom with the world around them, and more importantly, the local community. They want a sense of belonging. We see that, with a lot of issues around youth violence now, and a lot of people are telling us that's because they don't feel they belong. And flexibility in how they learn and where they learn. And so these were the 3 guiding challenges for us in the design of the NEXTschool project. And if you're interested in innovation globally, I encourage you to look up OECD Innovative Learning Environments Projects. The ILE project is a 10-year study of the most successful educational innovations worldwide. And so NEXTschool is actually a hybrid of those best successful features of the high school experience. The other point, and why Billings has, in particular, our first pilot, has gotten involved as a middle school is that transition from elementary to high school, where in grade 6, they were a big fish in a small bowl. Suddenly they find themselves in grade 6, a very small fish in a big bowl. HIVE, just quickly, it's an acronym for higher order thinking, innovation, versatility, and engagement. And we'll leave you with an email address at the end if you want to access the slides, and I think through the conference you can as well. So the hybrid of best practices and most successful innovations around the world boil us down to 4 particular features. One, small school in the school environment, where all the teachers and the students work together as a group. The teachers don't teach multiple levels and multiple subjects. There's, in this setting, there's about 200 students and 12 teachers who work collaboratively together in one wing of the building. Secondly, a learning hub where every day they check in. Every day students have a fresh start, a new beginning, and can check in and look after each other and look out for each other. Thirdly, student flex time. And fourthly, teacher flex time, which I'll describe in a few moments. So you know, the little fish in the big bowl becomes a middle school of about 180 students with 12 teachers. Those in the education sector will know that that's the student teacher ratio, average of 17 to 1. 2 grade clusters, a grade 7 and a grade 8. And that is 6 teachers among them. And the learning hub every morning, we use the student teacher ratio. So the learning hub each morning is only about 15, 16 students with a teacher coach. Right? So it's not a full, you know, not a full class. It's a learning hub independent of those full classes. So the daily learning hub can have a variety of activities. When we designed this, and I should point out, the pilot is designed by the teachers themselves. So in fact, we provided the container. They are designing the contents. So we have really strong ownership in the project because teachers are actively involved in determining what goes on. Some of the examples that this is from the design process last year: morning news, daily meditation, journal entry, homework catch up, breakfast and nutrition. So this is the intention of the design that we worked on last year with the teachers on what might occur. Secondly, student flex time is a series of what we would call at the university level co-curricular credits. So they're not extracurricular, they're co-curricular. They will be, and we're just starting the pilot since September, but they will evolve into being intrinsically connected to the cross-curricular competencies in broad areas of learning in the QEP. And so there's a variety of courses. Some of the roundtable members will describe some of those to you, but the whole point is having students experience and explore and discover in areas that they're interested in that are not necessarily, and often not at all, contained in the ministry curriculum. And that's an hour a day. So the last hour of every day, so it's not like a Wednesday afternoon, which a lot of schools are experimenting. It's an hour every day. What people, many people, even in education, don't know is that the basic school regulation doesn't require 900 hours of instruction. It only requires 720 hours, and that's that 1 hour, that 20% difference. Some examples, as we started the year, we thought the courses would be interest and academic. And we did 1 rotation of these courses, and we're in the next rotation, which starts at the end of this month. We're talking about moving, making, and mastering. So moving, any physical kinds of activities, making, makerspace, construction, Lego projects, and mastery being academic and other life skills. So we're expanding the concept as we go. There's also a daily study hall in that student flex time. And students take 3 co-curricular, that's a typo, courses per rotation. So it's a 9-day schedule. Every 3rd day they take a different course. Am I doing so far, timing wise? Now, teacher flex time is something that's unique to the project that we did not find in global research. And what we've done is taken, as you know, a typical high school schedule All the subjects are scattered all over the place, the students are scattered all over the place, and guess what? So are the teachers scattered all over the place. We've taken all their, because teachers teach about 2/3 of the school year, so the magic number mathematically for this is 3. So teachers teach a little over 600 hours, students have 900 hours. And what we've done is taken all the teacher spare periods and lined them up to be every 3rd day as a spare day. So teachers teach 2 days in a row and have a spare day in groups of 4 teaching teams. And they have the day to work on curriculum development, interdisciplinary studies, and more importantly, professional development. So teachers can organize their own professional development within the school on an ongoing basis. So let's say they want to do project-based learning, they might have an introductory workshop on that, explore and try it out, and then 9 days later, 9 days later, come back in and debrief on it, right? As opposed to having, a PED day, and then good luck and we'll see you next year. So teacher flex time, this is the design idea that they came up with.
1 minute.
1 minute, that's good, because I've only got about a minute left. What they said is they split these days half, in this case, the PM for personal work that they would be normally doing anyway, corrections, prep, etc. And one of the ideas, we're not there yet, but getting there, is one of the days, one of the half days would be curriculum management, collaborative planning, and professional development. And that's it. I made it in 10 minutes. I should say, because I have 30 seconds left. So rather than have me yap on for an hour, we thought the best thing to do was to bring teacher, student, coordinator, administrator right from the school that started piloting in September. We've not prepped them at all, so it can be things that work, things that don't work, but just to share the discussion and get your input and feedback as well. Thank you. Sorry.
Turn it over to Shelley.
So I've been in love with this program since I've heard about it years ago, and I was very excited it was coming to my school. The teachers that are now teaching in it wrote a letter of intent last year. So we weren't just automatically chosen if we showed interest, we basically had to apply for it. So there was definitely teacher buy-in, I think, which is key. If it's just told to teachers like this is a program we're bringing in, it's not going to be as good. So we're a school within a school because there's 7 to 11, grade 7 to 11 in our high school, and we're all in one hallway, a very good hallway, nice classrooms. It's very spacious, very bright, and we're very happy with the space that they chose to put us in. Admin has been very supportive. Last year we had PED days and we had say on how we wanted it to work. What we felt would work well in our school, what we want to improve on, things like that. So I'll start with the hub, which is lower students. My hub we got to choose our hub students. I taught grade 7 last year, and so the grade 8s this year, I knew some of them, not all of them. And so we all the grade 8 teachers met and said, here are keys that we want with this teacher, here are key students we want with this teacher, and we all basically chose our hub. It was like a draft, a picking of our students. And so in some of my hub group of some of my students suffer from coming to school regularly. So that was my goal, to get them to come to school more, have a little one-on-one when they do show up, not make a huge deal out of it, but just say, hey, nice to see you here today. And it's like, let's try and make it through the full day. So yeah, we all have our goals and the students that we want to help with whatever needs that they have. We have themes. There's Moody Monday, Talk About It Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Thoughtful Thursday, and Fun Friday. So Moody Monday is basically, what's our mood? What was last week? How did it go? Was it good? Was it not so good? How are we going to change it for this week? Kind of like a goal setting for the week, for the day even. And it could be small groups talking about it. It could be doing a little journal entry, just writing about something, or just a round table. The loudest students talk most often, or sometimes I'll just target the quieter ones and just put them on the spot and say anything to share. What'd you do on the weekend? what assignments you have due this week. Talk about it Tuesday, so it's open, just what do we want to talk about? Wellness Wednesday, a lot of us go out for walks. My class asks me every time, can we go out walking? So that we just do the hall, we walk back and forth. Some hubs go out and actually go outside. It's 15 minutes. It started off as 20, and then we shortened it a little bit. So it's 15 minutes, and we do something with wellness. And some just said, well, do I have to go out and walk? I'm like, no, your wellness could be rest. You know, you want to sit down and just recuperate for 15 minutes or have a snack. You know, it could be just anything you want for wellness. Thoughtful Thursday. So at one point I was doing like, just be alone with our thoughts and be silent. And we're just not going to talk and just think about whatever. It could be being thoughtful for somebody else. My classroom was a bit cooler. I have an old air conditioning machine. I got central air at home. So I brought my air conditioner in, and there was a thought for Thursday when it was my spare day, when I was on my flex teacher schedule. So my classroom wasn't being used for the day. So I offered my classroom to the hottest classroom on our hallway. It's the grade 7 English teacher. So my thoughtful deed was their class came into, especially in the afternoon when it's super hot, they got to come into the cooler classroom because I wasn't using it. And so it's like, have a good deed, you know, who you can be thoughtful for. Then I started giving a brain teaser, like what to think about, you know, and that they seem to really like that. It's like, it's Thoughtful Thursday, are we gonna get a brain teaser? So it's like, we're playing around with what works, what doesn't work, and whatever your group of 16, 17 students like, they kind of ask for. And we roll with the punches. It's like we're going as we go. And Fun Friday, my hub seems to just want to be able to use their phones. So Fun Friday, they are allowed for 15 minutes to use their phone for now. Because
Don't tell everybody else.
we don't know, government might you know, step in on that and say no phones in schools, and then we have no control. But for now, that's their fun. I mean, it could change. We could do cahoots. There's different fun activities, you know, games and things we can play that are fun, that don't involve phones, but that was what they wanted. So that's Hub. So I teach science. So my day goes 4 periods a day, science 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's my 4 groups. So I do 4 groups of grade 7, the next day 4 groups of grade 8, and then my next day will be my spare day, all my spare. So it's my professional development, getting caught up on correcting, maybe booking someone from the board to come and be a flex influencer. So if I want to borrow the robotics kits from the board office, I can have them come in and we can establish like what we're going to be doing for that flex. So I say 4 periods because our 5th is flex. Flex is only on the days that I'm teaching. So it's the 2 days that I'm on. And then, well, my flex is this span is there's 4 rotations. Mine is learning with laptops, so they can come in and do projects that they need to do or anything that they want to do on their laptop, teaching them different Office 365 tools, PowerPoint, and, you know, the notebook with inside, or just getting caught up on assignments. And the other one is board games. So we were able to go through resources and having board games purchased. I gave my to-do list and all the board games that I wanted were there. So when they come in, they establish themselves in little groups, and I take different groups each time to be the first one to go to this trolley, and they just pick whatever one they want. So the ones that I even asked for feedback, they loved Uno, there's Crocono, there's categories, and there's a good 10 to 12 games on the trolley, so they've all played with different ones. How am I doing?
Okay.
What else? So end of term is happening now, like next couple of days, it's the end of term. And I've never taught 8 groups before. I've always taught, you know, 5, 6 groups. And I've never taught all, I've taught grade 7 and 8, and then maybe a little bit of grade 9 based on how many periods I had. So now I have 8 groups, and I'm finding it, I mean, it's 200 students. I don't usually have that many, so the correcting is more. I've decreased in my curriculum too. Like I have 3 times a cycle where last year I had 5. So there's a bit of adjustment going on with that. But I still love the program. There's different things that are pros and cons. Like if I'm part of the complementary, so it's science, phys ed, music, ERC, that are the complementary, and core teaches them twice that. So they have 6 times a cycle, and it's math, French, English, and history / geography. So they have them twice as much. They have them 6 times a cycle. I have them 3 times a cycle. And I'm thinking if I wanted to be core, I would have them twice as much. That would be a pro. I would like them to have them 6 times a cycle. I could do a lot, but then I wouldn't have them all. I would have had to choose either grade 7 or grade 8. So I really like where I am, and every teacher, basically, we had input. We had input on how it would work, who would be complementary, who would be core. And it was just, it worked out well. We all, we all had that say, and we all basically pitched our ideas forward and discussed what would be good. I was thinking there's different things that are gonna happen, like they're gonna clue in real fast that this is the day where I have all my fun subjects, because they do like science. Like we have a lab once a cycle, and then it's phys ed and music and ERC. It's not the math, French, English, like the heavy duty, right? But the ones that are absent more frequent, they're absent on, it doesn't matter the day. So that really, I don't feel has made, it's still early in the year too. My favorite part of what's been going on since we've started the new program, because we knew we would have a bit of pushback, especially from the grade 8s who were used to last year's model. They had the run of the school. They had one class here and then had to go to the other side of the building to go to the next class. We have them all contained. Their lockers are in the hallway. Their French classes here, their math classes there, their science classes there. So they shouldn't be late, but they're trying, all these little goals to make them be comfortable in the same space, not make them late for class, all those different problems. So we're working on those. Grade 7s, well, to be honest, all these problems never started. So we're working on the grade 8s to kind of get rid of those behaviors that they say we started from last year. Flex. I had student in my grade 7, or I was teaching my board game Flex that day. Grade 7 student had to get some work done, and his mother had emailed me the night before, and I said, "You want to meet at lunch, after school, or Flex?" I said, "What do you have for Flex today?" He's like, "Basketball," and I said, "Okay, you want to stay with basketball?" I didn't want to make him like. At the end of the year, maybe midway through the year, it'd be awesome if they make that choice to choose to do the assignment instead of going to their fun Flex. And so I didn't push. I'd say, "Oh yeah, you want to go to your basketball?" He's like, "Yeah, but I also have basketball after school, and I'd rather miss the Flex basketball than my after school basketball." So I think his mom was giving him like, you had to stay after school. And because I mentioned Flex, he's like, "Well, wait, it's still an hour, right? So if I can miss my Flex, but then still go to my after school basketball." So he made the choice. He made the choice to not go to basketball. He went to his Flex teacher, was doing basketball, and said, "Do you mind if I go with Miss McDonagh?" He came to my class, he took out his laptop, he did his work there for the hour instead of staying after school. And it's very early in the year that I'm seeing that, but it's a very, I didn't think it would be this early that we would see that kind of choice from the students to do.
Thank
That's
you
it.
so much, Shelley. Deshawn, would you like to take it away?
So first thing I would start off with is the hub. At the beginning of the day in the morning, we all go to our lockers, we get our stuff, then we go to our hub. We're able to see like our friends, and we're able to do we just talk, depending on whichever day of the week it is, we do whatever that is. And after the hub, it's like you get like a good morning fresh start, because you get to start talking to your friends. It's like fun. It's like, "Hey, what's up?" And after you go to class, it's like, okay, I had a nice fun 15-minute morning, and I'm just like ready to work. And it's super fun that way, because most of the time before in the morning, you would go to school and you just immediately go to your class and you'd be like, "Oh, here I am again at school, just doing my work." But I feel like the hub really lets us students get to wake up in the morning and actually get ready for our classes and have fun. And for Flex, when we're doing flexes, at the end of the day, it's like you go to school and you're ready, like you know exactly what you're doing at the end of the day. So let's say you have soccer at the end of the day, you have soccer, so you're like, "Okay, let me get all my work done during school, and I can't wait to I can't wait to go to my flex at the end of the day." So during the day, all that you think about is like, I get my work done and I get to go to my flex at the end of the day. And at the same time, people have like, how do I put this, sorry? Even so, there's academic flexes where you take different courses, like let's say you're not doing so well in math, or let's say you're not doing so well in science, you get to go to those flexes and you get to work there, but mostly because like they choose to go there, they don't like get forced to be there. And I remember hearing somebody say students lately, they have been like going there willingly and not forcefully. So that's a good thing. And you just have something like at the end of the day to look forward to while you're in school. And as I've been talking to my friends, I've been asking them what have they been thinking about the flexes lately and just how school has been going. And not so far, I haven't heard one of my friends say they wish it was the old how school used to be. They like the flex very much. It's very fun for them. They enjoy it because there's multiple varieties of flexes that you could choose, different activities you could do. And I hear every single one of my friends or people who aren't even my friends, when I ask them if they enjoy the flex, they tell me they like it a lot because it doesn't make school super basic. Just go to school, you do your work, and you leave. You go to school, you do your work, and you get to have fun during school. And yeah. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks so much, Deshaun. Brian,
Thanks very much. So proud of this guy. Want to say a few things about Deshaun. Last year, Deshaun was in our IB program in grade 7, and it didn't go so great, you know, and I saw him a lot. We saw each other a lot last year. This year in this program, he's so engaged, and I hardly ever see him. I only see him on the basketball court and passing in hallways. And I can't say enough positive things about this program from an administrator's point of view and from an elementary teacher's point of view, because I taught elementary for about 20 years. And one of the big issues I found with the grade 6 students was the anxiety they had going into high school. They're always so stressed because high school is such a big, you know, it's just so big. They would have nightmares, just something as simple as opening the lock for the lockers, right? And this program is not like other middle school programs. And I'll talk about the differences in a few minutes, but this program creates that school within a school, that transition for the high school, the big high school. And that's what attracted us Billings to this program. I want to talk a little bit about the differences between the NEXTschool and other middle school programs. I've seen different middle school programs where you've had English generalists. And so you have English teachers teaching math, or you have math teachers teaching English. And so it's great for team teaching. In our sister school, CVR, we had that program for a while. What's great about this program is we have specialists teaching the subjects, and they're teaching, like Shelley's teaching science, both grade 7 and 8. She gets to see all the students. But then we have our grade 7 team, core teachers, our English, social studies, French and math, and they work together. And then we have our grade 8 core teachers. And it's just been great to not sit back and watch, but I'm up there in the hallways, I'm walking around, and I'll get to that in a few minutes as well. But I want to give you just a brief picture of Billings High School and what it kind of looks like. We have 900 students in our school. We're in Chattagee, just south of the Mercier Bridge. It's a unique school because it's an old Catholic high school, an old Protestant high school, and it's a maze. It's very confusing when you enter, and you can easily get lost, right, Noel? Yeah. So when you're a grade 7 student walking into that school, it's quite overwhelming. And so one of the first things we decided when starting this middle school program was the logistics, where we would be. And we chose an area in the school where everything would be there. The students' lockers, all their classes, except for phys ed and music. The student services, we have our student services, we have 2 classes where they work out. So everything's on site. They're even joking around putting my office up there too. And not yet, we're not there yet. But it's working out really, really well. And in terms of student engagement, students are very engaged. Truancy has dropped significantly. The last few years, students have been lots of skipping, lots of lates. This year, I see it. I don't have numbers in front of me, but I can tell right away that students are going in class. In fact, this morning I went to school and I was walking the halls, and we have a 5-minute passing time. And within 3 minutes, the halls were empty. And the second bell didn't even ring yet, and students were in class. And I'm walking in class, I'm talking to the teachers, I'm like, bell hasn't rang yet. But they're so engaged, and they want, and that's the classes, that's not the flex or the hub. And they're getting into a routine. Behavioral issues have dropped significantly. Having them mixed with the rest of the school, there's influence from the older students, fights, drugs, everything like that, because it's almost zero. So it's a huge difference in the school. And our community is now starting to talk about it. Parents that would normally send their students to maybe a private school or a school on the other side of the bridge. That's what we say in Chattagee. And we were losing almost 20%. Well, we're losing 20% of our students from elementary school to other schools. And there's talk in the community right now about this program. And we're hoping we get some of those students back because of the program. The other thing is grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 has always been called the regular program, because we have an IV program as well. We have our learning center and we have WOTP. And we wanted to get away from that word regular, because it's not regular. And we decided to call it HIVE. We came up, teachers we talked about, we came up with the name HIVE, supported with the NEXTschool model. And that's going well as well. Going well. What else? Trying to figure out what I've missed. Yeah, my leadership style has changed because of this. I think any administrator that takes on this type of program, you'll see how your leadership style changes. Often as administrator, we're scheduling the courses when they happen. We give everything to the teacher, and here you go. Here are your classes. What we've done with this program is, like Noel mentioned, we're providing the container, the bell schedule. These are the 5 periods a day, but you guys decide when you want to have your period, when you want to have your classes. Originally we talked about we're in a 9-day cycle, but like Noel said, the magic number is 3. So the first day is if you're a teacher, you teach 5 full periods, and then the second day is 5 full periods, and then the third day you have just your hub, and then we call it teacher flex. That was the teachers that chose that. Originally we're like, teaching 2 full days, that's going to be a lot. But we had originally talked about teaching 5 full days, 4 and 1 and a hub. But the teachers chose, they're like, no, we want to do that. And normally, you know, I'd be like, we're worried about that. No, we're gonna do it this way, but we're allowing the teachers to make these decisions. We're creating the container, and that's been an adjustment for me and my other counterparts. So, and I'm finding I'm changing as a administrator, doing the same in other areas of my work. It's not just working with the middle school, but working with my learning center, as I also in my dossier, I oversee the learning center. We have 4 learning centers in our school, and they're starting to make a lot of decisions themselves as well. And it's quite rewarding to see all this happening, to see students like Deshawn just flourishing. The teachers, they came in September, actually back in June, before they left, they were already planning September. They were so excited to come back, and it's the first time I've ever seen teachers excited for the fall. And then they came back, in August, and they were just so excited. It was so nice to see that, because often at the end of the year, you feel, you know, burnt and tired. You're like, let's go. But the teachers, they were so excited. They wanted to have these meetings. They were planning, they were working with us. And so that was really refreshing to see. It's the student engagement I'm seeing. It's the teacher buy-in to the program, which is huge. And those are the things that make this program so great.
Thanks so much, Brian. Vanessa?
I feel like I couldn't even speak to it more. I think you have very shining examples of how well it's going. And that's not to say it's not without hiccups. We're exploring things as we go, but it's so incredible to finally see NEXTschool taking off in the HIVE with Billings. My name is Vanessa. I'm a PhD candidate at McGill University, and I'm part of a research team of about 10 people who are committed to following this project. The numbers fluctuate as people come and go. Please tell me to slow down if I go too fast. I just get excited. But I started with the NEXTschool Project 7 years ago. I heard from Noel, and then I decided, okay, NEXTschool is what I want to do with my career as a researcher, because I'm so excited and committed to understanding educational change. My particular focus within the project is student involvement in educational change, because I think if we're going to get at student engagement, we need to know what that means to them. We need to support the kinds of things that they say they need or want and how they want to learn. But it has been absolutely fascinating to be part of this research along the way. And I'm not sure if you called it 1.0 this time, but we had a NEXTschool 1.0, which started about 5 years ago. And we learned so much from that iteration. There have been so many shifts, and I wrote a couple notes on what we learned from then and now. There was first a really big change in languaging and understanding how we were communicating the project from the perspective of theory to the actual practical application in schools. There was a lot of, in the first iteration, there was a lot of explaining the different parts. We had acronyms to explain things. We had systems that we were trying to teach, and the theory of change, which is design thinking. That's the process that is embedded within NEXTschool. There was so much explanation and not enough action in the part of the people who wanted to try it. So we learned that. And the second time we came around, there was more focus on teacher empowerment, teacher buy-in, and hearing from many more stakeholders within the process, and like much less hands-on. And along the same lines was the facilitation technique and approach was completely transformed. There was a very big shift in how many schools we focused on. So in round 1, there are almost 10 schools involved. And in round 2, there's 1, and we're doing it really well. So we learned it was a really important learning curve, because the idea is good. There's a lot of potential in what NEXTschool has to offer, but trying too much too fast, I think, got in the way of its capacity to be implemented. And what we learned from that was that people really need an example. Some of the things that we heard from people who attended our various summer institutes, the NEXTschool workshops, all sorts of things related. We did a lot of design workshops where people came and experimented with what design thinking was. And one of the constant comments we heard was, give me an example. What does it look like? please explain it to me, because like we said, there's a container and then there's contents, but in the beginning, it seemed like people could only see the container. But what about the hours and minutes allocated? What about union regulations? What about the schedule? What about rotating, blah, 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 blah. And so having an example like the one that we see at Billings now is the fundamental part of what's going to launch this project forward, because we had to understand what people needed and wanted and how they were interpreting what we were communicating as a team to implement. So we learned so much. Let's see what else we got. So moving on from what the approach was in terms of focusing on one example and really putting all of our efforts in order to understand very well how to make this work. Like the magic number 3 we learned was really hugely important, and aligning all of the periods vertically and making sure that teachers had ownership over the decision making. So right now, because we were able to do all of that, we can actually really super focus on the student engagement piece, because that was also very much missing from the approach. It was always the intention and it was guiding all of the decisions behind the theory, but where were the students in those conversations? So now part of what we're doing in this iteration is involving kids in some of the discussions and sort of the decision-making practices as NEXTschool and HIVE unfolds. So for example, photo voice has been used. I don't know if you're familiar with this approach, but kids go out, take pictures in relation to a prompt, and then explain using captions what that picture means to them and what they're trying to communicate to others. And it turns into an exhibit where you say, okay, they are involved in like a thematic analysis afterwards. And they're like, okay, the guiding question is, what does engagement look like for me? And here are the pictures, and this is what I want you to see. And this is what I need in order to make that happen. So we share that in a beautiful exhibit in the school or in school boards or whatever the students decide, so that people like Brian and like Shelley, also other students, researchers, can come in and hear straight from the horse's mouth, as you might say, what kids really need and want from their learning to be engaged. And what we've seen a lot in many of the places that we've done photo voice with kids is they really want to be active. They really, like we said, they want to feel belonging. They want to have trusting relationships with adults. And that happens time and time and time again. So that's been just extraordinary to see that we're actually able to not only focus on getting kids involved, that we're steering towards making sure that engagement is seriously the center of the decisions that are being made within NEXTschool. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say is we're really understanding how complex educational change is. I mean, 7 years later, there's so many moving parts that you really have to know, and it's not possible for one person to take on alone. That's why we have such a big team. That's why we have so many different connections with different people working on different things in order to align them so that changes can happen. The NEXTschool team, as I said, is a group of 10 people, and they are individually interested in educational change, each bringing their own different perspective on what like perspective and ideas about how things can happen, which is really exciting. And if you really want to know more about what we're doing as a team, we have a website, nextschoolquebec.com, and we also have a podcast called Change Ed. You can find that on any podcast kind of playing network. And we're tracing what the things that we've learned, and a lot of them are featuring some of our research briefs that you see here. We feature kind of the main topics that have been emerging from our research, and then we talk about them more informally. And we also feature each person on the team so that you can get to know kind of a little bit about what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I can't tell you how excited we are to finally have a real life example with so much commitment and support, and it's really just such a joy to see it finally come to fruition. Anyway, that's me.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. I just want to add, and then we'll go into some questions, that Vanessa is situated this year as a McGill researcher, but she's at the HIVE. She has her office there, and she's helping to facilitate, coordinating the flex time, etc. So it's really a nice way to go about research, having our researchers right on the site, working and interacting with the staff and students on a daily basis. So it's great.
Yeah. Do I have 2 minutes? Is that what you're saying?
1 minute?
No, no.
Go
no,
ahead,
it's
1
fine.
minute and then 1 minute.
I'm raising my hand as it were. Is that old joke? The only people that raise their hand in the meeting are educators.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
So I just wanted to follow because I heard when Shelley was talking about board games, we talked about the role of flex time, kind of student flex time, isolating cross-curricular competencies in broad areas of learning. And we're developing a catalog right now that actually speaks to the ones that they are targeting so that parents and other interested educational stakeholders can see the connections between what we're trying to offer. Because you say something like, well, we are offering board games, and some people are like, okay, but why? But we had a shining example of some kids who are usually disconnected or disengaged from their class, going to the board games, talking to younger students and saying, hey, do you want me to teach you how to play this game? That's an amazing example of cooperation, of leadership, of, you know, working with others, using creativity. So it's really important what we're doing here. And you see that in every flex in many different ways, but yeah, it's a really important.
Thanks so much, Noel.
And riffing off that, because they're co-curricular credits, the QEP gives every 25 hours as a credit, right, throughout high school. And so we're actually talking to the technician at the school to list these co-curricular credits on the report cards as well. So, you know, again, the research is telling us that when school values what kids are interested in, kids value what school is interested in. And the two comments I wanted to make just quickly is, when Shelley was talking, the trade-off of teaching 2 days in a row is single preps. And for those of you in the education business, that's gold, rather than teaching 4 different grade levels and 3 different subjects, etc. And the other thing I wanted to really pay tribute to Brian and Nick, the principal. What we observe, and Brian alluded to it, is just letting go. You don't have to control everything that goes on in the school. You don't have to control teachers. And when we let teachers get into the design process, everything just broke free, and you could just see them light up that they were actually having choices. And we as we progress, passing that down to students and having more student choice around what they need to learn. I'll stop.
Well, I want to thank everybody on the panel, and now I would like to open it up for any questions you might have. We have about 10 minutes to go. Go ahead. Could you direct your question to?
Burning in the back of my head for 10 minutes, so I know exactly what I want to ask. My name is Bridget. I work for an organization called Butler-Kisber. Our main mission is to work with schools on the island of Montreal and community sector partners and kind of build partnerships, particularly for the clientele that are considered the most vulnerable, you know, who have high risk factors of not getting out of high school and stuff like that. So the question is that we know, anybody who's read the Ministry of Education's 3-year strategic plan that came out 6 months ago or 4 months ago or something, they announced an intention that within 3 years, 70% of the schools in Quebec will become PPP schools, right? Des projets particuliers pédagogiques. And what that is, and I'm very much in a nutshell, what it is that schools will have particular vocations. So something like a Sport-études school or a concentration. I only know these terms in French, so I'm sorry. Anybody wants to translate that, okay too. But the idea, at this point, those programs in general are only available to students who are highly employed. And again, I'm making big lines because it's not always 100% true, but basically, the idea with trying to turn it into 70% of schools will offer this program is that the idea is that students engaging in something that they're interested in is a key to motivation, which will help the more at-risk students and not just the ones that are high performing. In theory, it's a great idea, and it is a great idea, period. However, and this is the second part of it, a lot of the schools that I work with are, you know, have high poverty levels, have high dropout levels compared to their school board. It's always making a certain margin. And what they're saying to me is, in theory, we love this idea, but these are not, you know, where you showed, I don't remember, I think it was you who started with your graphic that they're high achieving and low engagement. Now we're talking low achieving or low academics and low engagement. And the question that they're asking, period, I'm not going to get that further question, is how in the world do we do that? Because we're taking away time from core subjects to do things that are of interest that will absolutely help motivation, but it'll take a while for basketball to translate into grades. I personally believe that basketball translates into grades, but it's true that it's not going to happen immediately. And for kids who are so close to being in a situation of failure, how do we do something super interesting like this in some way, shape, or form? But with a clientele that has different risk factors or that have been identified differently. Like how much of this is translatable to a clientele that
You wanna
isn't
answer?
performing, I guess is kind of the question.
Maybe I'll start off and Brian, you can close your ears. You know, the ambition was actually at the beginning to have a 60-40 split, not an 80-20 split of the day. Spotted to it, added to it is already a 60-40 40 split. And into that 40 split would be the opportunity to have specializations in the school. So this is the kind of dream next stage of NEXTschool, is that you could have an arts concentration in that 40%. You could have a sports concentration, multi-concentration in the school that address different kids' interest or expertise, regardless of how they're doing academically. And again, we know when they're actively interested in those things, they tend to, with the exception of all other special needs, but tend to perform better, or at least are motivated to perform better, as you've said yourself. So I think, you know, the other piece that's hasn't evolved yet at Billings, and that'll come in time, because one of the things we're saying this year, we don't want to push teachers now. They're excited. Let them explore on their own. But having flex at the end of the day also opens the door to community partnerships, people coming into the school in that period, and students going out. Because I was also the founder of the Community Learning Center model, which was community engagement in student engagement in community. It didn't fly as well in high school, and that's what inspired us to start the NEXTschool Project. But I think, you know, that you need a 60-40 split to really make that work. An hour a day is not enough for students to dive deep. I don't know if there's other comments.
We have Linda, and we have a gentleman in the back, and then someone over there. Go ahead, Linda.
So I just want to say kudos to you. I mean, this is absolutely inspirational. I mean, I think what I heard is a lot of emphasis on autonomy, on reflection, on collaboration. How do you see this eventually being scalable? Like, what are the conditions that need to exist for this to actually get taken up in a school, and how is it supported and financed? I mean, we just heard Russell talking about how Quebec wants to make sure that everybody has the same sign up outside, everything is run exactly the same way. It's, you know, predicted. If it's this time, this is what they're going to be doing in the school. How does this mesh with the general environment, right, of education in Quebec for Anglophones in particular, but scalability? I'm just...
Yeah, when we talked about the container, there are a number of containers: the Education Act, the Basic School Regulations, the collective agreement. Everything we're doing here is within those confines, so we've not burst out of the container. And our intention was always that the model should be scalable and sustainable. So in 1.0, we were into the program mode, the typical traditional way of implementing change in schools, which is make a program and change people's behavior. What we've discovered here is that if you change the structure, the behaviors change. And we hear that from the panelists saying, oh, well, now if there's a flex time, here's all the things. So the point about structural change is it's very difficult to go back, right? So the secret of it is that, will teachers want to go back to the way it was before? We don't think so. We don't see that in the innovative schools we explored. They wouldn't go back. So you know, so the programs that come are not dependent on individual teachers or administrators that initiate these programs. Typically what happens is they initiate a program, and when they leave, so does the program. Whereas when there's structural change like this, teachers and administrators come and go, but the structure remains. So I think that's, you know, it's quite scalable. In terms of financing in the pilot phase, there's a grant from the ministry to engage a coordinator, Vanessa, engage myself. The research team has independent grants from, you know, short grants, etc. So in the pilot phase, but our ambition by the end of the piloting, probably the next 2 or 3 years, is to then have a solid and easily transmittable model that people can pick up without the kind of piloting that we're doing now.
Yeah, and I think too that, I'll come right back just to add on to what Noel said. I think too, we found that the containers aren't as rigid as we sort of thought they were because it was based on traditional things that we never questioned. So that's been interesting also. There's more flexibility than we really realized. The gentleman in the blue blazer.
Got around from John at college. I'm the dean of pedagogical development and innovation there, and I'm responsible for the student success committee. Anybody who's worked on student success in any institution knows how complex it is, subgroups, by discipline, by program. But I'm wondering how you think the new school experience of these students might affect their ability to project themselves forward into the SAGEP system when we make that transition. There's a lot of research going into that transition and who is making it successfully and who is not. So I'm particularly interested in the students who could do SAGEP but are not making it in vulnerable populations, socioeconomically disadvantaged, weaker readers, and so on and so forth. Do you see the new school having any impact on those students' ability to make the transition to SAGEP, and in what ways? And what could we do to partner with you in order to bring in? I'll say one last thing. Noel, I spoke to him once about how to reach out to students. He said, don't present a program planner about what prerequisites. He said, demonstrate what the students do in different programs, whether it's paramedic or whatever. So I'm just interested in that link between what you're doing and the eventual move to SAGEP.
When I was at the ministry years ago in one of my reincarnations, we were talking about the profiles that are produced by the QEP. So because the competencies are the same throughout 11 grade levels, you could actually, rather than saying students perform, 80% in mathematics or whatever the R scores and everything else are, but that there's a profile of competencies that leans to, in addition to student flex time in this model, but even without the model, to a profile of competencies that might give students an indication of where they might have proficiency in CEGEP programs. Because you know better than me what the changeover rate and the dropout rate is in CEGEP programs is very significant. And it's because students don't have a clue what it is that they're interested in. So both the notion of competency profiles, and I know profiles is a bad word in a lot of contexts, but there is a pattern that comes about if you evaluate students across there's only 25 competencies. And so, a pattern of strong mathematics and science would start to incline students to make better initial choices in their entry to CEGEP that rather than having, and even in Concordia when I worked here, like 60% of the university population is general bachelor's programs because, people still don't have a clue where they're going. So I think in those ways, but particularly what we're seeing and starting to see, but hoping to see in student flex time is students exploring and discovering things in themselves that have a stronger potential. And I think, in the very first pilot, let's be honest, the student flex courses were the courses teachers were interested in giving, right? Because it's still the same teacher complement. But we think that'll evolve over time to be more life skills or more specific explorations could be in trades or different programs that CEGEP responds to. So I think there's a good opportunity for partnership there, but that also depends on moving the structure up into the senior grade levels, right? Because we're at a middle school now. We have a second school that wants to begin with us probably the rest of this year in the design phase like we had last year, but a school that wants to do all 5 grade levels. That'll be a real challenge of a different nature.
The gentleman, yes,
My
behind.
question kind of really perfect about what you just said. You spoke as this being a good transition for grade 6 students to go into grade 7 and 8. What's it been like, or going from 7 and 8 to grade 9? Okay.
That's what all the teachers are asking, especially the grade 8 teachers.
All the other teachers.
Grade 8 teachers are, we'll probably have a few students that will have to repeat grade 8. So what are we going to do with those students? And what are we going to do to help the students going into grade 9? So this is stuff we're exploring right now. And I don't have an answer to the question, but we're looking for some ideas. Ideally, we've brainstormed a little bit, Noel, myself, and Vanessa, about, what next school would look like in grade 9 and the rest of the school, and how we can make it work. Given, you know, in grade 10, we have the ministry exams and stuff, you know, how can we do this? And Noel has thrown out a few ideas that I like, and we'll see if we go ahead with stuff like that.
What's interesting, Lynn mentioned earlier, the flexibility that we don't, you know, it's 720 at grade 7 and 8, the compulsory hours, 720 out of 900, it drops to 600 at the grade 10 and 11 level, and people don't know those things, but when you look at them, it's designed to have more project-based learning and more experiential learning. It's already in the design. That's what was exciting at the beginning, is that we thought we'd have a lot of conflict with the basic rule regulation. And in fact, the compulsory hours dropped to, imagine that, 624, 2/3 of the year is compulsory instruction. And you see the same time, they reduced the number of matriculation exams at grade 11 for the same reason. So the design is excellent. It's not been applied properly. And I think what we're doing is taking advantage of those design parameters.
Yes, sir.
Just maybe a quick comment. One of the things that I find most interesting and appealing about the presentation today is that both of the students and the teachers, you're really embracing their agency, right? They're now have more of a say of how they spend their time and what they prioritize. I do recall, and I think Russell's talk earlier this morning kind of reminds us of certain things. When I did teacher training at Bishop's many years ago, the anecdote that the prof told was that at one point there was a deputy minister of education from Great Britain meeting with his counterpart in France. And they were talking, you know, this was probably in the 50s or 60s. And the fellow from France said, well, it's 10:30 in the morning. I can tell you what every student in France is studying right now. And it was a point of pride. So I guess on that background, you mentioned, Noel, I think that there is some funding right now from the ministry that is helping the project launch. What's the response from your contacts at the Ministry of Education, and what are the likelihoods that it can be scaled up and that there will be further support?
I think there will be, if we hear some of the testimonials that we hear this morning to that effect, but also pushing the envelope around quantitative versus qualitative research, and the photo voice is qualitative research. So I think we're going to have some interesting discussions when we report back to the ministry, when they're looking at, you know, did student success improve? Are students doing better on exams? Are there more students graduating, etc.? And that's not the principle at all. Understanding students that are actively engaged, and, you know, we hear students saying it's fun going to school. Hello? Is that, you know, that is a lot more important than student success. So I think that, you know, I think strategically now is we want to build momentum. The first school here with the middle school, then a full school. It's surprising the amount of attention and interest is expressed once we started the pilot. We're only in October, but we're getting a lot of positive feedback. So as was it Brian or somebody said, you know, Vanessa said they want to see it in action. Well, now it is in action, and when people see it really happening, suddenly then all of those usual questions disappear. Time on subject and all of those pieces. So I think we'll probably have more support from within the school system, and school boards' interest and ability to fund the project internally rather than waiting and depending on the ministry to do so. And I think that's a testament to, when I opened up saying, we're an innovative environment, and we have been all along.
Yeah, and I think the emphasis on student engagement and not on student success, which usually means scores, just flips the whole notion around and dovetails with a qualitative approach to the research. Sorry, the gentleman in the back. Yes,
Yeah,
and then over here.
Mostly related with the previous one. The flexible approach sounds fascinating, but particularly focusing on the teachers, it seems almost too premature. And I guess I wonder, Vanessa, you said that there were 10 schools, now there's only 1. What do they envisage for the school board? I mean, once word gets out that, you know, this amazing thing's happening at Billings, you know, how going back to the scaling up, I mean, is there impetus possible here where if everyone comes, you know, everybody now wants to teach their school? And related to that, what kind of impact anyone's ability you think this might have teacher retention?
Well, in the schools that we observed, and we visited personally and virtually a wide number of schools in 1.0, and 1.0 failed. We were failing forward. 1.0 failed because we treated it more as a recipe than a menu. So, you know, we thought, we figured it all out. We said, here's how you do it. One, follow these 10 steps and voila. And in 2.0, we're saying it's a menu. You choose and you design yourself. But I lost track of the question.
Teacher.
Teacher retention.
Oh, teacher
Yeah.
retention.
Yeah,
Yeah, in
yeah.
those schools, both student and teacher retention are very high where these kinds of models are at practice, extremely high. And the interest, you know, it's there's already conversations within Billings at teachers in 9, 10, 11. Probably some who don't want any part of it, but the attraction, particularly around teacher flex time, is very high. And so when teachers have that significant amount of time to be working together or even individually, but not teaching, because the message that we're hoping to transmit, and we've seen in these innovative schools, is, you know what you do is important and it should be within your working day. That we shouldn't be expecting you to spend, 3 hours every night correcting and prepping. And so part of the adjustment in the pilot now, and we're having some tensions around teacher flex time, because teachers are saying, well, because they're not, they're used to having an hour off here, there, and everywhere, and not necessarily doing a lot, which moves the work to home. But now they have a lot of time, but not sure how to use it. So that's part of an adjustment too. The short answer to that is yes, retention is much higher, both with students and teachers in these environments. I'd say we're not totally there yet. I'd say in terms of comparing with those environments, particularly schools in New Zealand, if you think Finland is advanced, get over it. It's New Zealand where real education change is happening big time. And in those settings, we're about 65% there,
I'd like to
already in
respond-
the pilot.
Could I
I'm
respond
going
to
to
the first
take one,
part? I just wanted to respond to the first part of the question because I think it's important.
The part I missed.
Yeah, I got you.
we have one more.
Just, if I understood your question about scalability, I think what we learned in 1.0 is the importance of doing it well and doing it right to the best of our capacity. And like Noel was saying earlier, the pilot and the funding for the pilot and the work that we're doing now, which can extend to 1, 2, or 3 schools, these iterations that are helping us problem solve as we go, like every day we're learning something different and we're adjusting, which is the whole beauty of the flexibility of the program. You can, because there's so much collaboration, like they're all in one hallway. If you can imagine, one teacher can basically just say to the other, I need help with this, are you available, or can we swap, or whatever. We're learning as we go how we even swapped a classroom because it made more sense for one teacher to be somewhere else so they could work more collaboratively easily. So that was the flexibility that was allowed by the program. But I think we need to see that and make it happen in 1 or 2 or 3 locations to have something really scalable first, and then we can get to that next part.
We'll take one more question because I realize it's we're right almost at time.
So I'm Devin Warnock. I'm from Leicester Vita. I'm a former Billings student in the 90s. So this is very good. Having lived through the maze and seen the struggles of going to grade 6 in a Shelley school in Billings. It was January. I have so many questions. Right now I'm a consultant for inclusive ed at, I'm going to give you one, I promise. I'm a consultant for inclusive ed at Leicester Vita. And so my question was really to the administrator and teachers in terms of like support students, like your class size is amazing in the degree in a high school setting, and my time is less than much higher. But in terms of resource support, again, technical work, like how is that being managed with you guys? Are you seeing that need for that? Is there more ability to give the support that's needed with kids in a smaller class size? Just looking at that, because that's really, to me, very interesting. Smaller class size, and then having 12 teachers available is amazing. Just like the resource role and how that may be playing a different role in the school.
I want to clarify our small class size is our hub, which is the 15 minutes at the beginning of the day, because there's 6 they're divided in 6 hubs, but that's 4 classes. So my classes are more 26 to 29 students. My hub is 18. Want to clarify that?
Yeah, we
So
have
it's normal.
4 grade 7 classes and 4 grade 8 classes. But during hub, we have 12 hub classes. So those 8 classes are dispersed over 12. And so we have about 15 students in each hub class. But we have, we're quite full. We're at 28 students for grade 7 and 8 in almost every class. In terms of student resources, I'm really happy to answer this question. We have 2 special ed techs, 1 attendant, and we have a social work technician. Our social work technician has her own classroom right beside all the other classes. And whereas before in the past, they were downstairs near the office and they would have to send students down to, we'd call it SOS, or where the social work technicians work. And the students would get lost when they get there. The stories would change and everything. But by having our social work technician right beside the classes, the teachers are right there. They're like, hey, we're having some issues, some drama between a couple of these students. Can you take care of it? And it's dealt with right away. Right beside the social work technician, we have a room that's called the transitions room. And we have computers in there for word queue. For students that have missed tests, they can go there. Students that have special needs, they can go there. We also have a floating attendant and another social work technician that floats between the classes during class time. And we're hoping to add another special ed tech in a couple of weeks, just because we have so many students with IEPs and special needs. Just sign them all. So.
I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming, and I would ask you to thank our panel. I hope we can continue the conversation. Thanks so much for being here.
We have a 3-page overview. There's a link to the website on which there are a series of podcasts and research briefs, as well as who the team is. And also there's an email where you can reach us if you need to, and it describes the whole design process and, you know, in as short as period as you can get. And we're happy to hang around for a few minutes. Anybody wants to chat. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robin. I am a professional cook and I teach the next generation of cooks at culinary school. So I'm gonna do a little bracket. I used to. I'm actually a tech consultant now. But for this, it's way better if I say I'm still doing it. Okay. So I'm here today because I have questions. I want to know what digital skills do I need to teach these students to prepare them for the workforce of tomorrow. So future ready trade skills. What are they? Do we even know what these tradespeople need as digital literacy skills? Are there any trade specific ones that one's trade will need, but the other trade won't? Now, in relation to the trade experience, the people teaching their trades are tradespeople. So how do VT teachers identify, situate, and teach these skills? Can they differentiate between the experience they had as tradespeople and what their students will have in the future of that trade? There's also the role of trade transmission culture that's going to go with that will affect this. It's a master-apprentice relationship. That's the way trade works. But if you tell the trade teacher you're hired because you're a trade expert, you know everything in your field, that's what you're transmitting, but they're missing those digital literacy skills, that hierarchy stops that from happening. That tradesperson, that young tradesperson might have those skills, but they're not being valued because of that hierarchical culture. There's presumed knowledge. A lot of our students are coming from hugely different backgrounds. I have 17-year-olds and I have 77-year-olds that have always wanted to be cooks. I have people coming from outside of this country. I have people born inside this province. And with this hugely diverse background, there's a presumed knowledge before they come in. Is that presumed knowledge preventing digital literacy skills from transferring? Accessibility. These prerequisite skills are secondary for English, French, and math. the digital competency framework put out by Ministry of Education came out in 2019. Now, if these students are coming from all these different backgrounds and the teachers that are teaching the trades come from learning their trade and actively working in the trade in the from before the 2000s, how are people supposed to access this information to be able to teach it in the trades? And then, of course, there's always that dilemma between teaching and education and trades. Trade training is about skills to enter the workforce, and education is about lifelong skills. And there's a dichotomy there because education says, no, 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 these are lifelong concepts. Training says, as we see in the short program just coming up, you just need to know how to hammer the nail into the wood and then you can go work in the field. And we know that that doesn't set them up for a long-term commitment to their trade. So I am here because I am currently a master's student at Concordia University doing and I have to decide what my thesis is going to be. And so this is the part that interests me. I want to know what digital literacy skills do tradespeople need to enter into the workforce today and be prepared for the future of their trade. That's it. Am I 3 minutes?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sampreet, Arneja. I'm here today with a project that I've started called Scattered. Scattered is aimed to be an investment in the introspection, mindfulness, and critical thinking of the generations to follow. What it is mindfulness meditation paired with automatic poetry techniques that have been used for years and years and years to kind of reach an internal conversation with oneself. The filters and barriers we usually have when we're discussing our feelings in our own minds usually stop the stuff that we're really feeling from pouring out. So the automatic writing techniques essentially act as a gateway for those feelings to flood without the conscious effort of removing them. Now, why this works especially well for people with ADHD and autism, as neurodivergent children are, we have an inclination to rapid thoughts, 100 thoughts per second. And being able to channel that chaos is essential for the functioning in everyday society, past educations. So the reason I'm here presenting this to you today is we have been doing workshops at elementary level, soon to be high school level and university level. And what we're finding is for these people, their expression, their ability to communicate their feelings have gone way up. And because they're collecting poetry as opposed to just doing this mental work and releasing it, they have a journal of their introspection and their growth through this process. And this is something that's very difficult for people with ADHD and autism to do, is to be able to feel like you fit into this world. So I hope to have this project go into schools so we can start this investment at a younger age. We can get younger children and at ADHD or neuro regular alike. We can get everyone to get in on this because it builds that ability for conversation, it builds that ability for introspection, and it builds that ability to be more critical in the world to come. So through this, we're going to also be releasing a journal where we're going to have neurodivergents around the province of Quebec release some of their poetry at their discretion if they'd like to. And we're going to see as a journal how it progresses and how their introspection evolves, how their poetry skills evolves, and how their communication evolves. Thank you very much. Do I still have some time?
You have a minute and a half.
Excellent. Okay. I really want to share with you guys the goals of this project. As I was discussing, it's to build that dialogue with oneself. It's most importantly to offer the scarce mental health resources that exist. A lot of individuals now will be swiping up on TikTok or Instagram and getting all their mental health information from creators online who aren't really qualified to be sharing it. And this is creating a pandemic of mental disorders in our youth, because you listen to one symptom and you start to associate, well, now you're building that symptom in yourself. And now you're building associating symptoms of a mental disorder that you may never even have. And it's not like every family can afford the resources to send you to a psychologist. So programs like this that will help you listen to your internal conversations on a more constructive basis will allow you to have a more genuine approach with your own mind as opposed to listening to someone talk online.
So I just want to share a quick result and then I'll end my time. We did this with a group of youth, and this was an ADHD fourth grader who made this poem after conducting the 5-minute meditation followed by the automatic writing. Miles away or even years apart from the future or past, you're still not really here. You're not you in time. I'm even speaking to you. Different lives, shortages of answers, shortages of time between us. It's all gone yet still there. I'm happy when I see you, but you're not really there. I made a better version of you that I'm now attached to. And that is automatic. That's not consciously thinking. We didn't try to put those words together. That came from within. And if we can map this and journal it and work on it, imagine what we can dig from within us. Thank you guys so much.
My name is Megan Chacon, and I work with Canadian Parents for French. We've been around for quite a while, but it's an organization that exists all across Canada since the adoption of the Official Languages Act at the federal level. And then we have branches all across the country. So my branch, if you will, is Quebec and Nunavut. And I am here on my own, trying to cover all of that vast territory. And especially post-pandemic, my job is to connect with the Anglophone community as much as possible. Our name only exists in English, but we're here to help people learn French. Our target is mostly families with youth who are learning French as a second language. We just launched an early learning program, and then we have programs that go all the way up to CEGEP, and then some programs specifically for parents who want to support their kids in that learning process. If you're at all curious about us, please, the QR code leads to our website. Also, I have a table out front if you haven't seen it yet. I went all out. We have the green tablecloth, and I'm much better one-on-one than I am in these large format presentations. So please come visit me. You can also sign up for our newsletter. I swear I only send one message a month. So you will not be bombarded with emails. And most of them are just emails too. So not fancy newsletters with point form. These are the 3 things we have coming up. If they interest you, register, sign up. I'd say the vast majority of our initiatives and programs are free. So there is no barrier to entry. A lot of them are also virtual, which is what helps make them accessible across such a vast territory. I'm supported by the national office in Ottawa and by the other branches. So a lot of the opportunities I share, I don't necessarily run, but I also tweak, adjust, and host some of my own initiatives to target the Quebec audience specifically, which obviously is a very unique need here when it comes to learning French as a second language, to say the least. So at the time that remains, I'm just going to hit on a couple of our initiatives. If any of these seem at all of interest to you, please reach out. You'll see the Mary Joyce Booth Fund on my slide here. Every year, we award 2 $500 grants to schools or community organizations or parent groups who want to host an activity to learn French, to promote the learning of French. Very broad definition. And it takes, if you have an idea in mind, 5 minutes to apply. It's not a hefty grant application process. Really, all we need is your name, your email, how much you think it'll cost, and what you want to do. That deadline is coming up in December. And we love having new people apply to get people interested. We have 2 contests, the Concours d'Art Oratoire and Au Poésie. So these are specifically for French second language learners. And we divide students by age group as well as by language experience. One of them is a poetry contest. I don't know if there's any way that we could collaborate. But for a lot of times, this is the first time students have tried writing poetry in French. It starts in grade 1, goes all the way up to first year CEGEP, and we get some really, really stunning work out of that. The Concordia Oratoire is a speech giving contest, which for students who succeed at the provincial level, they have the opportunity to advance to the national level and win some pretty meaningful prizes in terms of, am I running out of time? All right. And lastly, we have our teacher awards, which we're just launching again this year. So if you know an FSL teacher who should be recognized, we're looking for nominations, and they will be honored in April in person. Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roxanne DeForge, and I am a founding partner at Pure and Applied. We're a learning, research, and development firm located right here in Montreal. Fun fact about me, I was Paul Zanazanian's TA 10 years ago, right here at Concordia University. So this is a really full circle moment for me. And over the past 2 years, myself and my colleagues at Pure and Applied have been learning about some of the internal needs that English school boards have in order to promote their sustainability and their vitality. Through interviews, focus groups, user testing, and team discussions, we've identified a number of school board needs, including access to professional development on demand, meaning that teachers and principals who have different availabilities and different learning needs can also access that professional development. Ensuring that professional development is effective and based on research is another need. Building a culture of learning and collaboration throughout an organization. The ability to efficiently, the word efficiently isn't there, but it's the most important part. The ability to efficiently collect data and report to the Ministry of Education. Attracting and retaining staff is an ongoing need that school boards have, as is informing and educating parents. Supporting non-qualified and non-specialist teachers is actually a growing need, and non-specialist teachers are those that are teaching outside of their subject specialism. And finally, building positive relationships with pre-service teachers in universities to ensure that there's a healthy talent pipeline. So we believe that responding to these needs requires an ongoing, long-term, and systemic approach. And with this in mind, we have developed a process and a platform for continuous improvement. So this is an image of a fully functional prototype that we have developed for the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board, who we've been working closely with over the past 2 years. So our goal is to pilot the platform and our process school board wide in 2024. And so we're currently looking for collaborators, advisors, and partners who might be interested in piloting the platform in 2024 as well. And partners can include school boards, academic institutions, and organizations that provide adult education. Thank you. That's it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Naturo. I'm the interim executive director of the English Language Arts Network. We're an arts service organization supporting English-speaking artists and arts and culture organizations throughout Quebec. You are probably wondering why I am here speaking at an education and vitality conference. Although we're a sort of a member-based organization, we do have a number of initiatives that touch on education, and generally we're very proactive about sort of stating the value of arts and culture to supporting education in a number of respects. So for the previous 4 years, I've been working on Elan's Quebec Relations project, which I will henceforth refer to as just QR to shave off a few seconds. QR is a project that has been funded by the Secrétariat aux Relations avec les Québécois d'Expression Anglaise. And since the project first launched in 2018, we've been working to facilitate English-speaking artists and arts and culture organizations access to funding in Quebec. So this project really grew out of a central hypothesis, which is that many in the English language arts community remain reticent about applying for public funds in Quebec. So practically speaking, sometimes that means that they prefer to look at federal options instead of things that would be available to them within the province in which they're working. Sometimes that's about misperceptions, that they're not eligible, but just as often, it really boils down to time, capacity, and expertise. So applying to programs that you're unfamiliar with, which may have documentation that is entirely in French, is a tough ask for busy individuals and organizations who have to do a cost-benefit analysis every time they think about applying for something new. So we've developed a number of ways to help facilitate their access. The most significant of which I'm going to talk to you about today is our searchable provincial funding platform featured on the website link on my slide there. That's hosted on the LN website. So the platform, which we launched in March of 2020, features now over 250 funding programs from a range of different provincial ministries and funding bodies, including the Ministère de la Culture et des Communications, the Ministère de l'Éducation, the Ministère des Affaires Municipales et Habitation, the Conseil des Arts et Lettres du Québec, and several more. So each program entry on the platform offers just a concise summary of the whole program documentation, featuring just the most crucial information so you can have a sort of quick sense of if it's something that is relevant to you. And wherever necessary, crucially, we've translated that information into English. So all of this greatly speeds up the process of researching and identifying relevant sources of funding. And users can also request at the end of that research process a free consultation with our team to discuss their funding needs, their eligibility for some of the programs that they've identified. So again, you may be asking yourself, what is the link here between arts and culture funding and this conference, or education more broadly speaking? Well, first of all, in a practical sense, the programs that are on there very often are not arts and culture specific, so they're broadly applicable to other sectors. But more importantly, we look at the platform as a model for other sectors, including education, to help people develop sort of initiatives to disseminate information about provincial funding to English speakers in Quebec. So to that end, whether it's in the Q&A or just later on one-on-one, I'm really happy to share the expertise that we've developed through putting this together. I'm happy to talk about our R&D process, what the ongoing platform maintenance and updating looks like, and any other considerations that might help get the wheels turning in your heads about how something like this could benefit your community as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A lot of positive vibes, energies, and a lot of talent. So we have 40 minutes to have a nice discussion with our panelists. If you have any questions, please feel free to, yes.
I would like to meet Madame la Digital Information Person.
Sure, you want to do it after the 40 minutes? All right, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to just support Robin's original comments about vocational education.
Yeah, everybody knew that was me, right? From before, yeah.
My son was a student of yours in the food program.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
When?
During the pandemic, so. Yeah. that
With
was
me?
cooked, but not in the kitchen. Well, I packed.
I packed. What was your son's name? Can I ask? Is that
Liam Burke, anyway.
Liam Burke? I know Liam Burke. He's huge. Yeah. I remember him.
But anyway, I think one of your challenges around attracting people in vocational education, because I worked in the field for years, was the myth that it's for people that don't succeed academically. In fact, it's more difficult than academic because you need theory and practice. And I think you know, the attraction to vocational education, one of the inhibitors is parents. And if parents knew that's the value to it, not only in terms of employability, but in terms of you know, those who can and not just those who can.
Yeah, we're referring to training as well.
It perpetuates that old myth that if you can't succeed academically, you should.
Yeah, the fact that it's a deficit model is a huge problem.
Yeah.
You know, but sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Yeah, so the fact that it's a deficit, that it's a deficit model. So already the students coming in, they're coming in with this notion that I can't do that, so I do this. And then you hit vocational training programs, and vocational training programs are like, they're difficult and then they're not difficult. They're different. They're not the same. It's applied knowledge. We are preparing workers for the workforce. I would really like you to know what the difference is between a salmon, a trout, and an homme chevalier. But for the workforce, you just gotta be able to cook it, okay? Like, that's the reality. So apply that knowledge. It's not about what you know, it's about what you can do. And that switch in mindsets, because we place so much value as a society on what you know, right? That banking model of education. We place so much value on that, and we don't place the value on your ability to do something. So then the student comes in and is faced with this challenge of, wait a minute, the game of school that I knew up until now, the rules don't apply here. Because you're like, well, you know, how do you make a lasagna at 73%? That doesn't exist. It's either lasagna or it's not. You know, what is your client expecting? And so this notion, it's difficult because there is a physical side to trades, absolutely. So yes, at some point your knees and your back hurt, absolutely. But the difficulty is not just learning these manual skills, it's changing your mindset to, I am valuing the ability to do something, and I'm valuing the process of learning how to do that. Because as a society, where once again, we're very product focused. Get the A, your goal is to get good grades. Your goal is not to learn how to persevere and develop capacity. Your goal is to get good grades. And so that's counterintuitive to everything that's in the trades. Go back to the auto mechanic. The goal there is, yeah, he's got to fix that car, but that process of figuring out what is wrong, the diagnostic ability in your head, that's a huge part of that trade, and that needs to be valued. And the only way you're going to do that is by being put in situations where we value process and not necessarily product. So it's a huge challenge. And then you add the digital literacy component on top of it, which is very conceptual in its mind. Like, it's called the digital competency framework. So it's not about applied knowledge, it's about concepts. And that adds an added layer, because now that tradesperson, or the trade teacher in this case, has to take a concept, apply it, figure out how that works, and then how am I going to teach this? So it's multiple layers of difficulty when we're dealing with, like, there's a lot of conflicting pieces coming together to create this situation.
Nick, can you just tell us why you had to do what you did? And the reason I'm asking is because people all the time say, you know, where is their funding? Like, what's available? Like, they ask those questions all the time. And it just seems extraordinary to me that, you know, the feds and both levels of government don't do a very good job of like, you'd think that there'd be one place where you go and you say, I'm a photographer and I'm looking for a grant to do a 3-month thing, and you push a button. I mean, God, if Amazon could do it, why can't the governments do it, right? I mean, really, you're shopping for money, so.
The banks can do it.
Right, right, so why is why did you feel the need? I know there is a need, but can you explain why you did this?
Well, I mean, you know, in a very straightforward sense, there is, not to sort of restate what you're saying right back to you, but there is no sort of centralized source for this. We looked at some sort of private organizations that have also developed similar tools kind of as models, some art specific, some not art specific. But really, clearly, there is a need to, I think anytime you have to direct people to multiple websites, have them, you know, coming across information that is often presented in very, very different ways, different levels of detail, different sort of expectations about how they're going to engage with those programs. I think it very easily becomes discouraging for people. And I think particularly for people, I mean, in an arts and culture context specifically, often at the beginning of their careers, when they're not leaving their sort of training program with skills around, okay, how do I write a grant? How do I evaluate what a relevant grant is to my needs? So I think it is a matter of having to go above and beyond to help folks and sort of help them make sense of what is out there. We also play the role of presenting it in a way that is a little bit more limited than the amount of information that you'll see on the full documentation. It's very consciously that we've done that to not overwhelm people. We did some sort of focus group work at the beginning of the process, presenting some sort of models, not on the platform, but more in terms of printed materials with people about the kind of information we were putting together. People who were very experienced were saying, hey, this is great, you know, I would love to look through this. Other people who were less experienced were saying, you know, this doesn't really help me. You've just handed me like a huge stack of more stuff that is going to confuse me and like discourage me. So sometimes it's the matter of the centralization that is key. Sometimes it's a matter of not presenting all the information that is actually, you know, if you're going to apply, you're going to have to get to grips with that sooner or later. But that's not always helpful, I think, at the very first sort of research step of the process. So presenting it in such a way that allows people to take a quick look and say, I want to know more. I want to pursue this more. I want to reach out and request a consultation because I have some specific questions about this program. I think there's a few different strategic ways that we've sort of gone about it that help welcome more people into the process of looking for funding.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So your work is very interesting. It's very niche. So it would be interesting to hear about some of your challenges and perhaps successes in pursuing your projects. If you want to.
Cool.
Maybe there are any challenges.
Oh, there's challenges. there are lots of challenges. I'll just one challenge, because man, I could talk about VT all day long. Anybody wants to talk about VT? I'm your person. A major challenge is the fact that vocational training teachers are not trained teachers when they start teaching. So we go into the workforce, we work as tradespeople for X number of years. And then at some point, we go into the education stream, and it varies how we get there. But as a general rule, we kind of have at least 20 years experience in our trade before we start teaching. So we're somewhere around the 40-year mark when we start teaching. Most of us don't have higher education, so we got our DEP or our trade level equivalency. Not always, because it really depends on the field. But there's a large majority of us don't have any higher education than DEP level. And Quebec law says in order to teach in a public, in Quebec at the secondary level, which is what vocational training is, it's considered secondary 5, you must have a Bachelor of Education from a Quebec university. So there is a Bachelor of Vocational Education. It exists, and we have to do it while we are working full time as trade teachers. So we go on the weekends, and it usually takes us about 10 to 12 years to get it done because it is a 120 credit bachelor program. It is a massive challenge because remember, we have no experience with higher education at this, for the most part, not everybody. I mean, I don't want to lump everybody in the same group. So we're working in a field that we're not trained for because Monsieur Drainville would like to say, why does the auto mechanic need pedagogical skills? He knows his trade. Yeah, but it's not about the auto mechanic. It's about the student learning how to become the auto mechanic, right? Like different, so you do need pedagogical skills. So we're developing like huge coping mechanisms over this period that we're working full time. We're trying to marry a work-life balance. And so what happens is we separate from our trade because we just don't have time to deal with our trade anymore. And so one of the crucial things with digital literacy is a lot of these trade teachers became tradespeople at the dawn of the internet, became masters or experts in their trade before online collaborative tools existed, and became trade teachers before smartphones were totally normal in the workforce. So it's not even just identifying these digital literacy skills, like these people don't even know what their trade looks like with trade skills. So Monday afternoons, I host a little online platform called the Voc Talk Cafe. Anybody's welcome. I put the sheets out there if anybody wants to drop by. It's kind of like one of those old school radio programs where you used to call in and like people could ask questions. And I always do every week there's a trade. So every Monday, 3 to 4, there's a session. And every week there's a trade and we talk about a subject that touches our trade. So for example, this past week, it was sustainability in the construction trades. And what I'm noticing is what's coming out of what the teachers are saying is they're so consumed with trying to get their students to learn. And then we're dealing with students that have neurodivergent, and we're dealing with students that just spent 2 years on a pandemic doing nothing. So they have no experience to draw from. I worked the summer as a cook. I'm kind of curious about cooking, right? That's kind of gone. So they're so focused on supporting their students, they really don't know what's going on in their trades. And so I'll get teachers saying, yeah, AI and secretarial studies. Yeah, I need to learn about that program. I want to teach it to my students. And you're like, holy cow, okay. We got a long way to go. So the challenge is there's a lot of levels of challenge. And I'm not crapping on the excuse me. I'm not being bad, like I'm not putting them down, the vocational training teachers. They are passionate people and they really are experts in their trade, and all they want to do is share this with the students. But the support around them to get them to start those critical thinking skills about their relationship in education and the bigger picture, that's a major challenge at multiple levels. My master's thesis isn't going to address that.
Okay.
I want to finish this decade, right?
So that's very interesting. So how about we go through the panel and discuss challenges and then successes, unless people have other questions. So yeah, Sampreet.
Good. So for challenges, something similar.
Yeah.
I want to pose a question. Okay, and by a raise of hand, you guys can close your eyes if you want this to be anonymous. Okay. On a week-to-week basis, how many people here talk to yourself? How many of us have a conversation with us? Okay, excellent. Now that's amazing. That's amazing. How many of us journal it or vent it or release it somehow? Less, but still, I'm happy about you guys. Thank you. This is kind of the general consensus, but in some rooms it's a bit different, right? It's a lot of people have these conversations with themselves, but nobody really kind of addresses it like that. Nobody wants to look at it smack in the middle. You know, on a Tuesday night, I can find it in my drawer and, oh my God, I can't believe I felt that way. You know what I mean? That's kind of the challenge, is what we're trying to do with Scattered is open up that conversation. It's like, hey, it's not a bad thing to be able to be expressive about how we feel, right? And so many people are growing up now not aware that these skills are even something that they're lacking in, because all of the time is spent on social media. And that's the new social interaction that we get, is social media. And it's so fake and it's so dehumanizing to what we can do and what we can accomplish. So you have generations of these children now unable to have critical thinking, unable to have political discourse or feminist discourse or any form of discourse that they don't like. It's what they watch, their information bubbles and their social media algorithms, and they repeat those points instead of sitting down and trying to understand each other. And I think that stems from the inability in the younger generations to kind of address what they're feeling and know that we can have these conversations openly without it meaning to be vulnerable. You know, if we practice being vulnerable enough with ourselves, there's not really much other people can do to break that vulnerability. And having that conversation with children at the elementary school level is super easy because they're open and they're receptive to doing it. And out of all the participants, they were the most adamant. Now that I told you that, what age group do you guys think is the hardest to persuade to try the poetry? Adults, you know, and adults are the most closed off to this process, but the adults that have gone through and done it, the teachers in the classrooms, you know, the people that were administrators at the Bishop's Forum, for example, they all came up to me in the afternoon, was like, I didn't know I could write poetry. And I was like, it's not about the poetry, it's about the fact that you have these thoughts you didn't know you had. And the poetry is only beautiful because it's awakening something in you, right? And that's just a practice that we need to do. It works through meditation, it works through mantra repetition, and there's academic literature on all of these things of improving a whole facet of mental illness symptoms that we all kind of face on a day-to-day basis, right? And so it's just my challenge is that I wish we were in a society that was more receptive to the inclination to try that. And I think we're opening up to it, and I'm really happy to see at least half of the room raise their hands, they turn in some way, because it really is important. Like it really is. We don't all have access to a therapist every week, but we all have access to a pen and paper, right? So, and then my success, I guess, for this project would just be the people that have tried it, the ADHD people that I'm emailing from these schools that say that, you know, they have such a better relationship with themselves and are able to go into schools and classrooms and participate in a way that they weren't able to. And it just makes me very grateful that I'm able to have that impact.
Thank you.
That's tough acts to follow. I suppose I'll start my comments with respect to the fact that Quebec is such a different reality than the rest of Canada, and that a lot of my support comes from Canadian Parents for French programs that exist elsewhere. And a lot of those programs don't even have a place in Quebec, because we could go to a coffee shop here and order coffee in French, or a restaurant or a museum, and have those cultural and authentic language learning experiences. We're so privileged in that way to live in a place where French is accessible. That being said, one of our biggest obstacles is linguistic insecurity. And one of our initiatives, which I didn't get the chance to mention, is presentations in Anglophone high schools, where we talk to the students and we say, okay, let's take away your classroom opinion of French, let's take away the politics, and let's just talk about what this language could mean to you on a personal level for the rest of your life. Do you intend to stay in Quebec? Do you want to go somewhere else in the world? Do you want to go to even another province? What are your dreams? What do you want to do in life? Do you think French will be an asset to you? Do you think that learning another language, any language, would be an asset to you? What will that bring to your life? And then trying to communicate how confronting those insecurities, the only way to learn a language is to make a hell of a lot of mistakes, as we all know. And I think it's important to, I digress a little bit here, but to recognize how phenomenally bilingual Anglophone Quebecers are. I think OCAL just released some statistics that said that over 94% of Anglophones in Quebec speak French, which I just think is absolutely phenomenal and something to be proud of. To get back to the direct question, which was a challenge, one of our biggest challenges right now is that we lost contact with a lot of schools during the pandemic. And teachers are overwhelmed. We're back in person here, but classrooms are not back to where they were before the pandemic. And I hear that all the time when I speak with pedagogical consultants, and I try to be like, oh, who wants to host me for a presentation, or who wants to do a contest, or who wants to, and it's like, teachers just need to get to the curriculum and their students need to catch up and get socialized and kind of make up for lost time and lost ground. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges. And then also with turnover, people don't know who we are anymore in the schools. So a big part of what I'm doing is just trying to get the word out there, help in whatever way I can, be it, try something new for, one thing at a time, take baby steps. And then I suppose successes for me so far have come very much through community partnerships. And that's why I come to events like this. I host French sing-along events, and we've been hosted by CLCs, we've been hosted by libraries, and by classrooms. I really want, how this hasn't happened yet, but I would really love for like some sort of welcome event where parents are coming to learn about a school and maybe consider enrolling their kids to do one of these French sing-alongs at one of these events. And the idea being that not only students are participating, but also parents. Everyone can sing. But those things are only possible through the smaller on-the-ground community organizations that know the people in their neighborhoods, who have those contacts with folks that they see every day in the grocery store who are a part of their inner circle. Because otherwise there's just no way to connect with everybody in Quebec, and none of it on my own. But that has been actually really heartwarming, and I've been able to forge a lot of partnerships that way over the past. I've been with CPF for 2 years now, and I'm always looking for new partners.
In terms of challenges, the most obvious one is the platform launched on March 2nd, 2020. So we got about 2 to 3 weeks of, I think, our promotional campaign, and then everything stopped. So it was a much slower process than we hoped in terms of getting the word out about the platform and encouraging folks to use it. I would say it's really only last year that we started to see the major payoff in that respect. I mean, another challenge was really just the amount of work that went into it. When I started as a research coordinator on the project, it was really about 6 months of full-time work in which I would say 80 to 90% of my role was going through these websites, collecting the information, translating it, formatting it. So the amount of initial work involved was significant. But even just the work that goes into keeping it up to date is a real challenge. We've looked at ways of trying to automate this as much as possible, and there's not really a good way of doing it. We have some platforms that we use that keep track of funder websites for changes, and sort of highlight what those changes are in the text, so that one of our coordinators can go on a weekly basis or if need be, even on a daily basis to make those necessary updates. But it is still a sort of labor-intensive process. I would say the successes have been significant and really have brought a lot of positivity, I think, to the community and to Elan, the way that we've brought sort of new people into our community. So even just beyond the platform and the consultation process, we have another step in which, for anybody who's applying to an eligible provincial grant, can actually receive free grant assistance from an experienced grant advisor. They're not having the grant written for them, but they're actually learning the skills of grant writing along the way. And we thought when we were starting out that this would be something that would cater more to organizations. Organically, we really got the sense, and I think in light of COVID sort of upending a lot of people's artistic practices, we really got the sense that our individual artists needed this kind of support too. So we pivoted fairly quickly to offering that support to artists. And I think that's really where I see most of the successes in terms of people that come through the platform, through the consultation, go on to the free grant assistance and submit an application. And we get emails 6 months later saying, thank you so much. I got that grant. I would not have been able to receive that grant without your assistance. Or even for people who don't get the grant, they say, you know what, now I actually know how to write a good grant. So I feel more confident to take that on in the future. And I think that's, we look at that more on sort of an anecdotal basis, but it's really, really important because in the arts, but in other sectors as well, obviously, grant writing can be looked at as like a sort of specialized skill that you go to that person that is the grant writer. Nobody else can do that. But really, it's a matter of, giving people the structure within which they can learn those skills and trying to seed those skills in the community more so that it's not this sort of thing that you don't feel like you can do yourself, but actually, if you have the right training, it is accessible to you.
Challenges. There's so many challenges. It's hard to pick just one, but I think in our case, in developing a platform to support school boards to do, all of the things that we talked about, but especially support its staff, support its principals and its teachers in developing their skills and in honing their practice on an ongoing basis and really trying to meet each of these different members of their ecosystem on their own level and create these personalized learning experiences. To be honest with you, that was kind of like an easy sell, if you will. Like it was, yes, we need that. Yes, we want that. But how are we going to implement it? How are we going to integrate it into our school board? Who's going to manage that platform? Like there were a lot of questions around capacity, change management. And so that's when the platform became process and a platform, which is what I talked about today. So in addition to just providing school boards with this platform that can support them, our team took some time to think about, well, how can we also support the school board in implementing this on a really practical level? So we actually work with the school board directly to think about how are we going to undergo a digital transformation of how we're currently doing things, but also make room for all the things that teachers and leaders really care about, which is in-person professional development and in-person learning opportunities. So finding ways to accommodate everyone's different needs and wants, while also supporting them with having very little capacity to sort of manage and monitor this on an ongoing basis, was really critical to us. And one thing that we learned through interviews was that there were a number of school boards actually that tried to do something similar during the pandemic, right? Because they wanted to get their resources online quickly. Like, we're not going to be able to do learning together in person anymore. So how do we respond quickly? And one of the things that we learned was that a lot of those initiatives of putting resources online and getting people engaged didn't work. And one of the reasons that we believe they didn't work is because people weren't really adopting those platforms, or they weren't really engaging with them on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis. So a part of what we're bringing to this platform, and a part of what we learned through our research, is that it needs engagement, it needs monitoring, it needs people going into these systems to say, hey, I really appreciated the response that you wrote to that essay, or, you know, that assignment that you did. Like, how can I ask a follow-up question? How can I engage? How can I share a resource with you? So our approach is to really provide 360 support. So you get, of course, a system, but you also get us as educational experts. I didn't mention former teacher, former lecturer, former everything. But, you know, now we're really wanting to focus on bringing pedagogical conversations online so we can scale them, and so they can be accessible anytime, anywhere.
Very good, very interesting. I think we have 10 minutes. So, are there any questions? No.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
for
you
my
can ask
fellow
that.
board
So I was
people?
gonna, okay, good.
Okay.
No, I had a question too.
Yeah, I have a question, you guys. Okay, I wanted to, and I guess you guys kind of already answered, but like, what has been like probably the most rewarding part of your learning experience from this sort of thing? Like in your processes of doing these projects, what do you think was the most rewarding learning experience?
Well, I can go first.
Go for it.
It's, you know, VT and I like to talk, so. One of the most rewarding things is when you're inside education, and once again, remember this context of VT teacher, where this really is a world that we're not super comfortable in. Having gone through the Bachelor of Vocational Education and then deciding at my age to go do a master's degree, go into graduate school. When you're inside the education, the public education system at the high school or vocational level, adult general education level, really the only thing that ever gets told to you is, oh, you finished your bachelor's? Have you thought about educational leadership? And that seems to be like, nobody ever says anything else. And like this burning question in my head about digital literacy, I kind of was like, yeah, educational leadership, sure, but you know, I don't want to run in the center. That's a nightmare of problems. No thanks. But and then you know, thinking around a little bit and talking to people, I found the EdTech Masters, which is what I'm in right now. And entering into this world and having been in there now for 2 years, it's a whole world that I had no idea existed and connects enormously with vocational training. And so on a learning journey, being able to bring that back to my community and say, hey, VT teachers, educational leadership is one possibility, but there's this whole other realm out there that we know nothing about that is actually very connected to who we are, because it's about training and non-training intervention, which is what we do. And so that in my learning journey is a personal learning journey, being able to bring that back to this and say, you know, we do have options where we can contribute in a way that's a little bit more congruent with who we are, I think has been a positive thing.
I can jump in. I mean, I would say that directly related to the platform, what has been really rewarding is that we made the jump to version 2.0. I think it was last fall, which was able to sort of take into account a lot of feedback that we got in the first stage and the first iteration. So it was really, really gratifying for me to see a lot of that feedback finally show up on the website, all of the things that had been bugging me for like a year or more since it first launched, this, because to sort of zoom out for a second, it's so hard to think through every potential sort of user case or, you know, all of these different considerations that go into creating a platform like this in advance. You try to do as much work as you can in advance and research sort of comparable models so that you can prepare as much as possible, but inevitably there are things where you realize, God, I wish I did that differently. And it's such a clunky thing, you know, whether it's for the user on the front end or for us on the back end. So it's been really great seeing it so much more streamlined now in the second iteration of it. And I would say also it's just been really rewarding for me in terms of doing the consultation work with people who come to us through the platform and have questions, getting to know about them and their artistic practices, their needs, kind of learning the ways to, you know, spot like, okay, this person is really starting off, we need to go a little bit slower. And then there are those people who are, they've done the homework, they've been on the platform for hours and hours, and they're coming with specific questions. It's been really fun and rewarding for me to do that work and get to know those people and the interesting projects that they have and hopefully to help them be successful in the work that they do.
What was the question again?
What was the most rewarding like learning experience?
I mean, this work is so rewarding, working with teachers and school board leaders and in-school administrators, all gathering their voices and trying to understand what their needs are, what their challenges are, and how we can help them is just so much fun. And what's especially fun is being able to hear everyone and then bring it back and then think about what does technology look like that solves these problems? And how can we try to meet as many of the needs as possible? And how can we create something that's really going to support people on the ground in the classroom, but also be able to support people at the head office who have a lot of hard decisions to make sometimes, and how amazing it would be to be able to make those decisions with data that they can access all the time, anytime. So I think that's been incredibly rewarding. Also, I went to Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board. I was a student there, and then I was a teacher there. So I'm sitting around doing all of these things with, you know, my former teachers or my former principals or what have you. So for me, there's like a very sentimental thing about being there and about being an adult now and being taken seriously by folks. It's just I know it's silly, but for me, genuinely, it warms my heart and it makes the work so much more fun. So yeah, that would be it for me.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess I'll take two very specific examples, which were people who participated in our family-friendly French sing-along workshop. One was last year after doing a sing-along workshop. An older gentleman came up to me and started speaking in perfect French. You could tell he was a francophone immediately, and he said, you know, my grandson, his parents, he has one francophone parent, so his kid, and an anglophone parent, and then they moved to, I think, somewhere in South America for his early childhood years, and so he spoke Spanish and English, but his grandkid had not yet mastered French, and they'd moved back to Quebec, and it was something he was struggling with, and he had come to this activity with his grandson, and we sing all French Canadian folk songs that probably a lot of people in this room would recognize. But for him, it was such a meaningful and precious experience to watch his grandson sing some of these songs for the first time that were such an integral part of his identity and his culture. And he came and thanked me for that opportunity. Another one happened just a month ago when we hosted the same activity on the South Shore, and one of the families that attended were newcomers from Ukraine, and their English was passable. Their French was still very rudimentary, and yet mom and dad had come with both of the kids, and they were so on board and excited. In our draw prizes, they ended up winning a pair of wooden spoons. And afterwards, like, I was giving them lessons on how to play the wooden spoons. The dad specifically, again, thanked me just for like sharing that cultural experience and how precious it is to learn and experience not only a new language, but also another culture, and to feel like you're becoming a part of a new country. Those were very rewarding experiences.
Right, so it's 2:45. I wanted to ask one last question, but I don't know if we have time. Maybe 5 seconds each. It's like a speed answer moment. Are there any gained wisdoms that you'd like to share? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but through your work, it's just some ideas to leave us with.
Expression never hurts, guys. And November 14th, there's going to be a scattered workshop at Le Frigo Vert. It's going to be at 6 o'clock. So if you guys know anybody that might benefit from something like that, you come meet me outside, have a table. Thank you.
I would say that the model of our platform works in arts and culture, but it can work in other sectors as well. So if you're interested in finding out about that, come talk to me.
In my case, I think what I've learned is just maybe patience, to be patient, sorry, schools and teachers and the systems, as you pointed out earlier, they're so overwhelmed right now. So just, you know, if you believe in what you're working on and you want to work with schools, just take it slow, be willing to wait for the email that will come one day, and it will, and yeah, that's what I would say.
Trades are awesome.
I'm always last, because it takes me a while to think, but every relationship starts with a conversation, and so come talk to me.
All right, thank you so much. That was wonderful.